Hey guys, what is up? It's Biff and we're back in the Fearless Mods garage working on the 2005 Nissan Titan LE four-wheel drive crew cab. And we have completed all the exterior. Since you saw it last, we got our bed cover installed. We've taken care of the windshield wipers and everything else that needed to be fancified. We've got the bumper completely attached. And so now it's time to move on to our first exciting mods. I told you about it at the end of the last video. Rough Country has come through to help us out and do some great things to this truck and bring it to its next and final level of greatness. So first thing we're gonna do is running boards. If you wanna put Rough Country running boards on your Nissan Titan, stay tuned. Okay, so this is the only box that came that doesn't say Rough Country anywhere on the outside. Maybe it'll say it somewhere on the inside, but let's tear into here and see what they sent us. That seems very incomplete. That is nothing but some running boards with no instructions on how to hook them up or any of the pads or anything that goes on here that make them look like what I ordered. We might be done with this video before we even get started. All right, well, I found another box that actually does say Rough Country on it. So let's see what's in this guy, because it looks like running board parts. We got some plastic to put on the top of these guys. Like 2 on each side. We've got some 2 end caps for one. And 2 end caps for another. They're plastic. I gotta admit, I kind of thought these were gonna be metal, but they're plastic. We'll see how they look. We got some brackets to hold them. 3 on each side. Hey, instructions, what do you know? Look at that. Instructions and hardware. Lots and lots of little hardware. This looks like it should be really simple. So let's see what we can get going here. Secure these to the running boards. Use these little plastic securing twist nuts onto the plastic to hold them with a 13mm socket. Because they're going onto plastic, I'm not going to ugga-dugga them much. I'm just going to run them down. Let's see what we can do here. One very slight ugga-dugga. So with that, we've got our step plates on there. Those look nice. For the end caps, 1 on each side. You need to have these retaining screws slid down in these tracks for when you get the brackets fit up against it and you have to bolt them in. And that needs to be done ahead of time, and they don't tell you that in the instructions. When you're sliding these in there, you'll take these guys, which have the nylon inserts in the end of them, and you want to do those face down, the nylon downward, and just slide 3 in each rail. Once you get them in there, oriented the right way, you can just slide them down here with your Allen wrench, and then you can go back to putting in the 2 for your end cap. Slide them down so they don't interfere. I've got a number 4 metric Allen wrench. It didn't come with an Allen wrench. I don't know if they're metric or standard, but that one fits. So now we're going to line this baby up and just drive it on here. And one thing to note too is when you drive this thing down completely flush, It does seem to take a little bit of an angle, so just straighten it up so this is a nice square angle here. And then we're going to slide this nut up there where we need it. Put a washer on our little Allen head screw here. See if we can get this baby started. Once you get your screw in here, if it's having trouble meeting the nut because it's down too far, you can flip this over once you got that holding the nut in place and let gravity do the work for you until you can get it to catch the threads, and then you're good to go. They're plastic, so we don't need to go overboard here. We're just going to do the short end and tighten it down snug. That looks and feels plenty snug without trying to crush the plastic. And there's one end. Let's get the other end. And there we go. So with that, and our 3 screws slid down the rail, we can set this aside and get underneath here so that we can go ahead and remove this old running board and put these nice new ones on.
Okay, so the first thing we want to do is remove the old running board. So to do that, we'll come in here with our 12mm socket and we'll just zip the 6 underneath here off. Now I've already got the other 4 on the other 2 hangers, and we can just lift this guy off, set him aside, and then we will go to these rusty guys. You get in here on this guy with your 12mm socket. Unfortunately, we can't get to this one with a wrench, so I'm going to go get my 12mm ratchet and see if we can get it with that. This should do the trick. Okay. Well, this thing's pretty rusty, so it's gonna be nice to get that replaced. Let me check one of their bolts. It should thread right in, and it does. So we just need to get this stud out because we're gonna need that second hole on each of these. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy out, and then we'll move on to the other 2. If this doesn't work, we might have to do the 2 nut method. No. All right. I want to get these, I'm going to hit these with a little bit of PB Blaster back here, just so it can drip on me and stink. That's the one that's going to do the work. This one's just going to lock it in place nice and tight. And then now let's see if we can back this guy out. It's not doing it. That is not doing it. We might just have to lube up these studs and reuse them. Hopefully I didn't booger this one up too bad with the vice grips.
Okay, these brackets, there's one for the left and one for the right. The way we're going to do them is we're going to have the bend facing the rear of the vehicle so that from the front they look nice and smooth. So we're going to apply the ones like this to the driver's side and see how these look like they want to bolt up.
That's going to slide right in place. I'm going to go ahead and with my washer and lock nut on, or lock washer on there, I'm going to go ahead and get this guy down here started because it looks like he'll set the position once we get that flush to then be able to mount the top one. And then we'll take the same thing here. We'll put a washer and a flat washer and a lock washer on there, and then hope that we can get our nut to go all the way down on these boogered up threads. All right, the one that came off was a 12, but this is a 13, so let's just get that one just kind of snugged up there where it's nice and flat. Now let's see if we can get this one to crank down. Well, it's going down a little bit okay. I don't think I'm gonna crank that down anymore. I'm afraid that one's gonna snap, so. And there we go. One solid mount down. So we'll go ahead and get the other 2. All right. So I'm kind of just running the bottom ones down where it still allows some movement, but it's holding this flush. That way I can get that top one seated, and when it's flush, then I can come back and tighten this one up. Again, I'm going to snug that one up, but not over tighten it because I don't want to strip out that old tired stud. And then finish that one off, and that's 2. One thing I want to show you here, because they talk about it in the instructions, and that is if you're installing on a truck that didn't have running boards previously, you might have a plug. I guess because they give you options for both the extended cab, crew cab, which I have, which mounts here, but also maybe there was an option for a second one here, or maybe this was just for provisions for a crew cab. I don't know why it would be here, but the stud's here, unused, and there's a plug, and you would take this out and that would reveal the additional threaded hole so that you could mount if you didn't have these on here previously. And there we go, 3 mounts installed. So let's go ahead and slide our running board on here. Okay, so I'm setting this thing on here, and I just want to make sure that it sits right. I've got this bracket slid all the way up against the cover so that this is all the way back. And the main reason, and it extends off the end of the cab right there a little bit, but the main reason I'm doing that is because I want these pads to be where they should be for when you're stepping in, and based on their placement, I want them back as much as possible, because you're not going to be stepping in at the hinge point. You're going to be stepping in a little bit behind that, but in front of the seat. So you can see that this looks like a pretty good placement. I'm going to go ahead and get that bolted in, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, and for these guys, we're going to be using these smaller bolts here with a flat washer on them. And remember, we slid these things in here, so I'll make sure the back 2 are down here. One goes way up front, and then the middle 2 go right here. I see a nut up in there. I'm going to try to stab it. Needs to go back just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Whoop, almost had it. Guess I got to get a thread engaged before I let go. There we go. So we got that guy started. Well, it sure seems like it's going to go up and hit the bottom of the running board, but who knows. There's another, so we'll get him lined up. A little too far forward. Okay, I'm going to get the other 4 started, and then we can start tightening them down. Now that we have these all started, our next adjustment is in and out. So we know we want to go all the way back. The question is, how much in and out do we want to go? We can go all the way to here, but now we're kind of lined up with the bottom seam of the door. I'm thinking in slightly. And I'll get a tape measure and make sure we're even. But I'm going to move them in about a 1/2 inch from there, and they're still sticking out enough to look good. Give us good foot access. We'll give those a shot, because all the way out just seems like a bit much. And since these aren't auto retracting, I think that 1/2 inch is going to be what we're looking for. 1/2 inch, get a tape measure, verify it, and we'll tighten these down. Okay, so this is how it's looking, moved all the way back. I don't know, maybe I do want to bring that forward a little bit. It just looks a little weird. But that's as far forward as it goes anyway, so maybe an inch forward to where I had it. Set my approximate 1/2 inch here. Okay, now let's see what it looks like when we open the door. That looks good. Got a good foothold there to step up here and jump on in. So that looks good. See the front one, same thing. Step on it, jump on in. So I think we're looking good. I'm going to measure those and we'll go ahead and get them tightened down. You can see our gap right here. This one appears to be about the same as does this one. So now that we've got those set, we will go ahead and tighten those down and we'll see what happens. Okay, that is solid. Double check our measurements. I did the middle ones first, so it's solid now. Double check our front and aft measurements, and we'll see. Okay, so tightening them down does make a difference up top, but we look pretty even, and it does still rotate front and aft, so you definitely, after you tighten these middle ones, want to go back and look at these front and aft measurements, make sure everything's even, and we are. So now we'll go ahead and hold this guy stationary and get him snugged up. I don't like that at all. That's a bad design. A little critique here for rough country on these. We just drove a guy through because these screws, even with the washer, are too long. They go all the way through the nut and bottom out in the bottom of the track and push through. I assume we didn't notice it on these, although I can see that's kind of lumped up because they are hidden under here, but it did the same thing. So what I'm gonna do is take this guy back off, hammer that back flat so that I can get a little bit of black paint on there and make it look normal. Same with these guys. Take this off and fix those. And we're gonna have to shorten all of these bolts so that they won't bottom out like that. That was a definite miss on rough country, and a little bit sad to see that. Disappointing. Sure enough, we've pushed through on these. You can see they're lumped up there pretty good. Didn't know it until we got to this guy that we could see. So I'm gonna hammer these down, get a little bit of paint on them, and we're gonna have to take about, I don't know, 1/4 inch off each of these guys. And that is 6 times 2, that's 12 times we got to do that. That's pretty crappy. Okay, so to make sure we get this done correctly, we're going to thread a screw on here because you want to make sure that your screw threads are good after you cut it. I'm going to run this down a little bit more than what I want to take off. And I'm going to use 2 tools here. I'm going to use my hacksaw and a file. You could probably do this with a cutoff wheel if you wanted to, but I'm going to do it with a hacksaw here to control it a little better. I am going to use one of the screws that bottomed out because you can see where it's all silver on the tip where it dug in. And we're going to take a little more than that off. I will check it before we commit to all of them because I don't want to take too much off. So I'm going to go probably about 3/16 of an inch here and try to get myself started here. Okay, so now that that guy's off, I'm gonna run this nut down a little bit more and get myself back in the vise here and get the top flat. Then I'm going to angle it around the edges to give it a little bit of that thread starter and clean up any of the rolled over metal there. Again, don't want to do this with a grinder because you will just mess up more threads. Just trying to give it a little bit of bevel like the original screw had. And now when we thread this baby off, hopefully it just comes right off of there because we filed everything. It's got a little bit of a catch there which just cleaned up, and because we beveled it, we should be able to just put it right back on and it threads back on.
So that's what we want to do. I'm going to go check the length on this one real quick, and if that works, that's about what we're going to do to all the rest. Okay, so I have this guy right here screwed in, and we have no bump there. With the amount I took off, you can hopefully see right there, I am still pushing with just a minimal gap above there, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So that's the right amount to take off and about the minimum. You can see we could still take off another 1/16 easy and have no issues. So I'm going to pull that out and we're going to do the rest of them. We know that we took off that much. It looks like almost a 1/4 inch. So I am going to continue on. That is 1 down and 11 to go. 12 shortened bolts. Pounding these out might be a little bit of a challenge because this thing does have some thickness to it, but they are right behind the rails and we can see the dents in there. So maybe I can get something behind there that will allow me to pound against and just flatten this out. The only other option would be to grind it up, but then that'd leave a hole and I'd rather not do that. And even though these are aluminum and will have some cracking after I pound these down, it won't be the same as having a gaping hole. You won't fit? Will you fit? Yes, you'll fit. Boy, I gotta be right on it. Okay, I'm right on top of that. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, I think we're going to call that good. These are flat enough that they won't bubble up underneath our plastic, and that one with just a little bit of paint will look just fine. I'm going to let this dry and see how that looks before I start squirting all over that one. Okay, this is drying up still, but in the areas that have dried, it looks pretty good. So we're just going to go ahead and apply some to this guy. Okay, now that these are almost dry, I'm going to get ahead of it here and start sliding some of our bolts around. One thing I did find out, and it's already doing it again, is that these nuts did not like being ratcheted down with the ratchet. In fact, this one doesn't want to come loose. 1, 2. So the nuts are pretty much where they need to go. We can go ahead and put our plate back on here and cover up those areas that were unsightly but aren't any longer. The problem with ratcheting the nylon insert nuts, whoa, hello back there. You can't, it's hard to tell when the screw is bottomed out, and so then you end up pulling on it too hard. So I'm probably gonna snug those down by hand and tighten them by hand, just so that I have a better feel for when they're through the nylon and truly bottoming out without digging into the aluminum. So we've got those, we've got our nuts kind of where they belong. And now we will just set this up here again and go back to our adjustments. And with those just finger snugged down, it looks pretty good. I'll check the measurements one more time. Realizing that when we tighten it down, it'll probably move a little bit, but we're looking pretty good.
Feel snug. The washers are not moving, which means they are snugged down. 2 more to go. And with that, we've got all 6 of them snug. The thing feels solid. And that should be ready for our first step test. Okay. And that right there is how you install rough country running boards. They look good. Definitely changes the look of the truck. Gives it a little more of a rugged and modern appearance from the factory ones. And I think I like the look of that. So we will go ahead and get the other side done, and that will be a job complete. So I would say the feedback here is, hey, rough country, we shouldn't have had to do that to our running board. It looks okay, it's gonna be fine, but we shouldn't have had to do that. And the 2 that are under here, but at least we got it taken care of. Those bolts were entirely too long. There should be a little better instructions in the that come with it. They're kind of lacking, that tell you not to over tighten those. They should tell you to put the nuts in before you put the end caps on, and then they should tell you to hand tighten those and not over tighten them, because you can pull through the aluminum. And they should have given, most importantly, the right length of bolts. We should never have to do that with a kit that we get. So we'll go ahead and get the other side done, and that'll wrap up our rough country running boards. But please stay tuned, because we do have more rough country boxes. And I'm hoping that these running boards are not an indication of the quality that we'll find when we open those up, because we're digging into the suspension and it's gonna be awesome. But if you wanna see that, you're gonna have to stay tuned. The way to do that is click like and subscribe so that you don't miss your notifications. Click the bell and come back and watch us in the next episode where we make this baby take a new stance. It's gonna be exciting. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That's it. Take care.